Nice to meet you. I'm your grandmother. By the way, this is the first time we've met, isn't it? Don't you dare touch and without asking. Didn't I tell you we're strangers now? Strangers shouldn't touch my child. Get out. Okay. I'll leave. Oh, before I go, I'll leave this with you. Oh, the one you said to combine wedding and baby shower gifts into one. You remembered well. That's impressive. My husband's stepchild had a shotgun wedding. The birth has already taken place, and today is the wedding day. Even on such a joyful occasion, my husband's stepchild has been cold to me. It seems she wants to be a stranger to me. Having been treated coldly all this time, I decided to impart one last piece of motherly advice. What's this? What are these documents for? If you want to be a stranger, then let's be strangers. Continuing to think like a child will teach you what happens. I am Emily. I'm an office worker, 38 years old. The only slightly unusual thing about me is that I divorced in my 20s, moved back to my hometown, and have been living here ever since. But divorce is not so unusual these days, so I really have no distinguishing characteristics. Yet, something unusual happens to someone as ordinary as me. Welcome. Would you like the usual one? Yes, the usual, please. As I take the wet towel and order without even looking at the menu. Being single, I have a lot of freedom, so I go to a bar where a childhood friend works part-time about once a week. My childhood friend has never married and has always worked part-time in our hometown. If you've decided to live on your own, the income is surely enough. Isn't it better to work freely than to be tied down by a full-time job? Lately, seeing my friend so lively at work has made me think this way. Here you go, a draft beer and some appetizers for now. Thanks. A mug with a perfect 30% foam head and some dishes are placed before me. As I take a sip of beer, my friend grins and strikes up a conversation. Hey, do you remember Ethan? He was a year ahead of us in the volleyball club. I remember him. The captain who was popular with the girls' volleyball team, right? We always used to cheer from the next court over. The other day, Ethan came to this bar. He's divorced and moved back here, just like you. My divorce was over 10 years ago, though? I've forgotten all about being married. Right. Well, unlike you, it seems Ethan has a kid and got divorced just a few years ago. Not quite the same situation as yours. Ethan, huh? I had a crush on him in junior high school. Did he say he'd come back? He lives nearby, so he said he'd come again. Interested? Maybe aiming for a remarriage? It's not like that. I just want to see what he's like now. While chatting with my friend, I reach for my beer when suddenly, the door swings open. Though we were in the middle of a conversation, my friend quickly switches to waiter mode and turns to face the entrance. Welcome! Oh. Switching off from waiter mode just as fast. My friend starts grinning again and points towards the entrance. There's your man. I look in the direction my friend is pointing, and there stands the guy I admired during my youth. It's been over 20 years since I last saw him, but I remember his face from our school days. His youthful freshness remains, now enhanced by an adult's poise. Glad you could make it. Can I get takeout for pork ribs? It was so good last time, I thought I'd have it for dinner with my daughter today. Sure, I'll get it ready right away. Please have a seat next to Emily while you wait. My friend pulls out a chair next to me at the counter and urges Ethan to sit, then goes to place the order. Suddenly being alone with Ethan brought out an odd tension in me. However, Ethan seemed unconcerned and started talking to me as soon as he sat down. Hey, Emily. Ava told me you come here often. Do you remember me? I do remember, we used to practice next to each other on the volleyball courts, the boys and girls teams. We chatted about old times while waiting for the meal. It felt like only a minute, though it was about 10 minutes. Well, my daughter is waiting for dinner at home, so I'll be going. You're always here, right? I'll come by again soon. Yeah, see you. With a refreshing smile directed at me, Ethan left the shop. Reuniting with Ethan I admired in junior high school. It was impossible not to be moved, and I was already curious about him. After that, I began to see Ethan frequently at my childhood friend's shop. I started going to the shop hoping to see him, but I kept that a secret from my childhood friend. Our initial conversations were about school days, but soon we were bonding over similar life circumstances, having both married and returned to our hometown. As we talked more, we began to meet outside of my friend's shop and started dating, considering that if we both had another chance, remarriage might be a good idea. For someone who had led an unremarkable life, this was an unusual turn of events. While I was happy about meeting Ethan, if we were aiming for remarriage, there was a big hurdle to overcome. Nice to meet you, Lena. I've heard from Dad. You were in the same junior high school and volleyball team, right? What was Dad like during his school days? Hey, don't ask embarrassing questions. Is it okay if I talk about the time Ethan messed up at the volleyball prefectural tournament? Hey, Emily, what are you starting now? Seeing the always cool Ethan flustered like a child, Lena and I laughed together. Lena, Ethan's daughter, is 14 and in junior high school. Being at the peak of adolescence, I worried she might not think highly of me. However, my worries were unfounded. Lena and I quickly got along, and she was always bright and smiling. It's hard to imagine from the cheerful Lena now, but she was quite shocked and withdrawn right after her father's divorce. It must have been the result of Ethan's constant encouragement over the past 2 years that Lena cheered up. A year into our relationship, Ethan and I were able to get married, having successfully navigated the biggest concern. My parents, who thought I would never marry again, were delighted by the unexpected remarriage. My in-laws were concerned about Lena being withdrawn due to Ethan's divorce and asked me to take care of her when we went to announce our marriage. At the wedding, Ethan's relatives also asked me to look after Lena. It seems Lena is very cherished. I resolved to help Lena grow into a fine adult. After the wedding, I moved into the house where my husband and daughter lived, and the 3 of us began our life together. Now that you 2 are married, I should tell you, Dad was actually being hit on by someone at the bar, right? What was her name? Dad and Mom's childhood friend. You mean Ava? Apparently, she was quite persistent in asking for his contact details. Hey, there's no need to talk about that. Why not? The approaches stopped shortly before you started dating Mom, right? So it's all good. Ava is pretty straightforward, so she probably gave up quickly once she sensed no interest. That comment sounds like the comfort of a winner. It's not like that. Don't talk that way. The 3 of us talked freely over dinner, without any reservations. It felt like we had been a family for a long time. I think it was good that we managed to achieve this atmosphere soon after remarrying. I hoped that our life would continue to be happily uneventful. However, the situation began to change gradually as my daughter entered high school. 2 years after our marriage, my high school daughter started working part-time, and her attitude began to change. Welcome back. Do you want dinner? There's a meal at work, so I always say I don't need it when I have a shift. I'm just checking to make sure you ate. I don't need that kind of check. Can you please not talk to me about unnecessary things? After giving me a cold look as if to say she didn't want me near her, my daughter headed straight to her room. She used to be cheerful and interact with me brightly when we first got married, but now she no longer shows me any smiles. Moreover, this cold attitude seems to be reserved just for me, as she continues to get along well with her father. Dad, is that your 3rd beer? You need to be careful about gaining weight now that you're over 40. Let me enjoy my evening, will you? I wonder why adults like drinking so much. I think about that at work too. After her bath, my daughter came to the kitchen to get a drink and happily chatted with her father, who was enjoying his evening drink. I was there too, but she talked to her father as if I wasn't present at all. Did I do something to Lena? You don't have any clue, do you? No. She won't answer when I ask her, and I wonder if this is okay to continue. Could it just be a phase of adolescence? If you're worried, why don't you ask Ava? My daughter works at a bar where a childhood friend is present. She doesn't say anything at home, but but she might have spoken about why she's cold at work. Following my husband's suggestion, I decided to call my childhood friend. She's normal here. Maybe Emily did something to upset her? In the end, I couldn't gather any information. As much as I don't want to think about it, could it be that she simply doesn't like me as a mother? Does she think her biological mother would have been better? Recently, I've started to think this way. Because of these thoughts, I've tried to avoid talking to her as much as possible, hoping not to be disliked further, and believe that this situation was just temporary. However, it seems to have had the opposite effect. As I stopped talking, the situation worsened. What time do you think it is? You're supposed to come straight home when you have work and be back by 10 p.m. when you don't. It's past midnight now. Where have you been? Stop nagging. It's none of your business. Why do I have to tell you where I was? I have my privacy too, you know? Besides, a 10 p.m. curfew is way too strict these days. I have friends to hang out with. Isn't it natural to worry when it's past midnight? Fine. I'll try to come home earlier from now on. If I'm going to be late, I'll let Dad know. Is that okay? Lena glared at me, then headed to her room. When I stopped talking, Lena's attitude toward me hardened, and she completely stopped listening. She doesn't treat her father as harshly, but she's become more defiant towards him as well. Her returns are getting later, and we're always worried because we don't know what she's doing or where she is. However, when we question her, she doesn't answer and just gets in a worse mood, creating a vicious cycle. I can finally get away from you guys. Don't contact me or come over. Lena, you're still relying on us to pay your tuition and rent, aren't you? You shouldn't speak like that. What? Are you threatening to cut off my allowance if I rebel? Isn't that neglecting your parental duties? You're already a college student. Until I'm fully independent, you need to take care of me, and no matter how old I get, I'm still your child. Fulfill your responsibilities as a parent. Ultimately, unable to mend our relationship, my daughter started living on her own when she became a college student. I'm worried about leaving my daughter alone now. But she's a college student, so she's already an adult. It might be overprotective to criticize her language and lifestyle. Moreover, she needs to learn that as an adult, she's responsible for her own actions. I thought she would learn to be responsible during her college years, but it seems she did not. This is the man I'm going to marry, Tyler. Nice to meet you. Hello, nice to meet you. Lena, is it true that you're pregnant? Yes, it's true. I'm 4 months along. I wanted to have the wedding before my belly gets too big, but we decided to have it on the anniversary of when we started dating, so I'm planning to have the baby first. My daughter rubbed her belly with a happy expression. Her fiancé is a 24-year-old in sales, clean-cut and serious-looking. On the surface, there seems to be no problem and no reason to oppose marriage. However, there was one major issue with this marriage. Pregnant and getting married, huh? Lena, you've just started your last year in college. What about your studies? I've thought about taking a leave, but maybe I'll just drop out. I can start working part-time once the childcare settles down. You're taking this too lightly. Have you really thought it through? I've thoroughly discussed this with Tyler. Even you would get upset, Dad. I may have just started working, but I promise to take good care of Lena and our baby, so please give us your blessing to marry. My husband and I exchanged glances, almost in dismay. Their words seemed earnest, but there was a naivety due to their youth. However, Lena is over 20 now, and it's the age where she should make her own decisions. Also, there are lessons to be learned by facing harsh realities. I too learned a lot from a failed marriage in my 20s. If their marriage works out, that's great, and if not, they are young enough to rebuild their lives. All right, do as you like. But remember, you're not a child anymore, so make sure to take full responsibility for yourself. Got it. Thank you. Lena and her fiancé exchanged happy glances. It felt like I saw my daughter's full-hearted smile for the first time in a long while. Honestly, I'm filled with anxiety and worry about her pregnancy and marriage. However, acknowledging their marriage did bring about one good thing. Dad was in the volleyball team, right? He forgot his volleyball shoes during a tournament. He was the captain, and everyone was asking, what did he even come for? Don't embarrass him in front of Tyler. But Mom, you're the one who told me that story. By acknowledging the marriage, Lena and I could talk brightly like before. I was happy that we could have a proper conversation for the first time in a long while. Still, it seems she hasn't outgrown her dependency. Right. Until I can start working part-time, continue the allowance as usual. Also, could you lend us some money for the wedding? I'll pay you back once I start working. You promised to take full responsibility for yourself, right? You need to manage those kinds of expenses on your own from now on. If it were just about getting married, I would do that. But there's a baby in my belly, right? Tyler is only in his second year of working and doesn't have much money, so it can't be helped. Besides, I said I'll pay you back once I start working, so I am taking responsibility, right? Lena, listen. As I was about to continue, my husband discreetly nudged my leg under the table, signaling me not to disrupt the good atmosphere we'd finally achieved. I swallowed the words I was about to say. All right. However, I will require you to sign a promissory note. It's important to formalize such promises as adults. Thanks, Dad. Kind and understanding. Exhausted, perhaps by the financial discussion, my husband slowly stood up and staggered a bit on his way to the bathroom. When I turned my gaze back from my husband's retreating back to my daughter, her expression had changed from cheerful to glaring at me. Why do you always have to say unnecessary things? You're always getting in the way when Dad agrees with something. See, I told you she's just like that. Yeah. Just like you said, she never says anything but unnecessary things. I'm not trying to interfere. The thing about the money earlier was also for your sake. There it goes, the classic toxic parent line, I did it for you. That's just annoying from our point of view. You're probably planning to keep nagging us about everything, right? That's so annoying, so don't even come see the baby when it's born. You're definitely going to start talking about how to raise kids. Why are you so harsh with me, Lena? What did I do? If you don't know why, that's the problem. We'll invite you to the wedding, so be grateful. I really didn't want to, but it would look strange to Tyler's parents if we didn't invite even a toxic parent. And make sure to bring combined gifts for the wedding and baby at the wedding. We're also planning to move in together, so prepare a moving gift, too. Just when I thought our relationship with my daughter could be mended, her words only increased my disappointment. I'll pretend to get along with you in front of Dad, so don't say anything unnecessary to him. Oh, why did this person have to be my mom? I wish I could go back to being a stranger to her. Let's just try to see each other as little as possible, shall we? Sorry, I had to step out at an awkward time. Welcome back. Try not to embarrass me during such an important time like the marriage greeting. When my husband returned, my daughter's expression instantly switched to a cheerful mode. She was amiable towards my kind husband who listens to her, and dismissive towards me, who she sees as an obstruction. While my daughter and husband were smiling and talking, she occasionally gave me a cold look. I listened to their conversation and thought about my daughter's earlier words. If my guess was correct, maybe there was still a chance to repair our relationship. She had said she wanted to go back to being strangers with me, so perhaps that approach might work. I decided, as a mother, to give my daughter one last lesson. About 6 months after the marriage, my daughter gave birth, and about a year after that, her wedding took place. As my daughter had requested, I did not visit her or the baby after she gave birth, so I only saw pictures shown to me by my husband. Thus, at today's wedding, I finally met my granddaughter for the first time. When the ceremony was over, my daughter was talking to acquaintances, and my son-in-law was taking care of the baby. I approached my son-in-law to see my granddaughter's face. This must be little Anne, right? Nice to meet you. I'm your grandmother. Oh, Emily. By the way, it's the first time you've met Anne, isn't it? I had never met my granddaughter directly and had been watching her from the sidelines since the middle of the ceremony. Seeing her in front of me, I was overjoyed and inadvertently poked her chubby cheek while she was sleeping. The fluffy feel of her cheek made me feel blissful. However, that happiness disappeared in an instant. Don't just touch and without asking. I told you we're strangers now, didn't I? Strangers shouldn't touch my child. Go away. The moment I touched my granddaughter, my daughter abruptly ended her conversation with her friend, marched up to me, and whispered coldly in my ear as usual. Despite hoping that the 18 months and the birth of the baby might have changed my daughter's feelings even slightly, it appeared to have been in vain. Okay. I'll be leaving now. Oh, before I go, let me give you this. A gift? Oh, the one where you said to combine the wedding and childbirth gifts. I'm impressed you remembered. My daughter snatched it from me as if to feel its thickness and, rudely, began checking the amount on the spot. But her expression stiffened when she checked the contents. What's this? What kind of document is this? It's a document to dissolve the relationship and make us strangers, as you wanted. Congratulations, now you can go back to being strangers, just as you wished. You'll sign it right here, right? Sure, I'll gladly sign it since it'll make us strangers. Caught off guard by the sudden presentation of the document, my daughter showed a clearly shaken expression. Normally, she should take her time to consider whether it's okay to sign it. However, driven by my provocation and her own past words, she felt she couldn't back down, took the pen I offered, snatched it, and began to sign her name on a nearby table. I'm going to tell Dad about this. You might end up divorced because he'll be fed up. Don't worry. I've already told Ethan. So, Dad agreed to this? If he knew you wanted us to be strangers and even said not to visit if a grandchild was born, of course, he wouldn't approve. Didn't I tell you not to say unnecessary things? Did you tell Dad? Do you think I'd just listen to you threatening me with words? Well, even if our parent-child relationship ends, I'll always be his daughter because we are blood-related, and you'll be the only stranger, which is ideal for me. Thanks for preparing the documents. My daughter wanted to show that she wasn't fazed by the situation, stopped writing for a moment, and looked up at me with a triumphant expression. Seeing her look up, I thought it was a good time and thrust another document in front of her face. What's this now? A loan agreement? Yes, didn't you borrow $60,000 from Ethan for this wedding? Here's the loan agreement. Also, there's the money I've been giving you monthly until you start working, right? Altogether, that adds up to about $80,000, doesn't it? Since we're going to be strangers, you'll need to start repaying the money I've lent you from next month. I can't keep a large sum of money lent out to a stranger indefinitely. What? I thought I was supposed to start repaying once I began working. But the document says you'll repay $2,000 every month. The monthly thing is because Dad printed a loan template from the internet, and the $2,000 was just a random number. It was supposed to be an amount that wouldn't burden me. I seem to recall something like that, but what you're saying is just a verbal agreement, isn't it? There's no evidence of it. However, I have the documents here properly formatted. As an adult, you should understand that in society, my documented word will take precedence over yours, right? If $2,000 a month is too much, maybe I could let you off with $1,000 a month? If we become strangers, I will have to start repaying at least $1,000 each month. Given that my daughter have dropped out of college and have no job experience, and considering her young husband and one-year-old child, repaying $2,000 a month is likely impossible, and even $1,000 might be quite difficult. It seemed she understood that instantly. As her hand stopped moving over the document, her gaze shifted around, looking for a way out. After a moment, her eyes settled on the loan document I had extended. This loan document has Dad's name on it, right? So, it means I borrowed the money from Dad, not you. So, I should be talking to Dad, not you. Dad is kind and unlike you, we are blood related. It seemed she thought she could escape the predicament with that argument, as her expression shifted from panic back to one of confidence. Still, she's very much a child. The document may have Ethan's name, but the money given was from both of us as a married couple. So, while I might not have decision-making power, I certainly have a right to speak on this matter. And Ethan knows about this situation and supports me. That can't be true. Dad would never do something so cruel to me. Well, you want me to leave, don't you? Could you hurry up and finish signing? She stopped completing the document. I'm sorry. I apologize for everything up to now. Please don't sever our relationship. No. As an adult, you must take responsibility for your actions. Under my stern gaze and pressure, she trembled and completed her signature. Once she finished writing, I immediately took the document from her. There are various other things we'll need, so I'll contact you if necessary. Now, I'll be going. While saying I would leave, I didn't head towards the exit. Instead, I walked towards the host's microphone. Her husband and his relatives looked on curiously, but I didn't mind and took the microphone. I have obtained a statement from my daughter. We are now strangers, and since she told me to leave, I will do so. What does that mean? As I announced that we had become strangers through the microphone, many people began to leave the venue. The expressions of those leaving were filled with disappointment. What's going on? What did you do? I've informed not only your father but also the relatives about what you've been doing up until now. Today, they knew we might become strangers. Everyone remembered how honest and bright you used to be and were shocked you could do something like this. When I remarried her father, his relatives were concerned about her mental state. Thus, I had been reporting her situation to the worried relatives, and through those family interactions, I had gained their trust. Of course, I also told them how her attitude had changed. However, like me, the relatives hoped that the old, bright she would return once she got married. But she didn't change. Having gained the trust of the relatives, and now that she told me to leave and wanted us to be strangers, the relatives decided to keep their distance from her, treating her as if she was a stranger. The venue became bizarre, with none of her father's relatives remaining, only her husband's relatives stayed. Some of her friends were still around, but they looked awkward. Why would you do something so terrible? It's for your own good. There you go again. How is this for my good? You're just upset with my attitude and want revenge, right? That's not the case at all. I thought you had matured into a responsible adult. Oh, look who's here. I pointed towards the entrance of the venue, directing my daughter's gaze. From the entrance, my husband was dragging along a childhood friend who was headed our way. This friend was a colleague from my daughter's high school part-time job, and they had remained close even after she quit the job. That's why he was invited to the wedding today. She was trying to sneak out with the relatives. I thought she might try to escape. It was a good decision to have Ethan wait at the entrance. What? What do you mean? Your attitude changed around the time you started working in high school, right? And at the marriage greeting, you questioned why I had to be your mom, comparing me to someone else, right? That's why I thought maybe Ava had been feeding you ideas. Feeding me ideas? So, the good vibes between Ava and Dad before you married him, or the threats from the shop manager that you were hitting on the customers, or all the other terrible actions of yours that Mom told me about, all of that was a lie. Ava, you said those things? Sorry. I was jealous that you took Ethan away. I thought I'd stir up some trouble at home at least. Knowing now that worse things were said about me than I imagined, I sighed heavily, feeling as if my head had gotten heavier. I had suspected that the childhood friend might be behind my daughter's attitude change. But any probing over the phone had been met with denial. That's why I created this incredible situation at the wedding, where my daughter and I would become strangers, to draw out the truth. The friend didn't need to escape with the relatives. However, fearing that he might be blamed for causing my daughter and me to become strangers, he tried to flee. My husband caught him trying to leave and questioned why he felt the need to escape. Merely stirring things up at home turned into a situation where the parent-child relationship was dissolved, which must have panicked him. You were also a victim of deception by Ava. I thought that if you knew this fact, you might change your behavior. How about it? Emily was really considering your best interests, wasn't she? Yes, I'm sorry. If you understand, that's good. But saying you were deceived by Ava doesn't excuse your childish behavior. So, I won't submit this disownment document, but I'll keep it. From now on, show your responsibility and awareness as an adult through your behavior. If you can't, then we really will cut ties with you. I'll do my best. My husband and I decided to head to the front of the venue to call back the relatives who pretended to leave. In the end, the only person who actually left in the middle of the ceremony was the childhood friend. After the wedding ended, my daughter got a job to start repaying the $80,000 we lent her. She's now paying back $6,000 a month, and when she can afford it, she gives $10,000. Despite some struggles, she's financially independent and managing her married life well. Also, the young couple is doing their best with parenting. Understanding that it's tough to work and care for a child, we sometimes take care of our grandchild. It was our idea to help with the childcare, but we just wanted more time with our grandchild. That's a secret from my daughter and her husband. The actions of the childhood friend were spread by us and those present at the venue. This incident spread among local friends, and the childhood friend could no longer stay in the area. She had lived as a part-timer in her hometown all her life. Crossing into her mid-40s and nearly reaching 50, it would be difficult to leave her familiar hometown and look for a new job after quitting the one she had for so long. It's her own doing that she can't stay in the hometown, so it can't be helped. My husband and I feel that our daughter has finally become a proper adult, and our parenting is complete. Now, we enjoy nothing more than spending time with our grandchild, occasionally taking care of him, while we continue our ordinary married life.